Welcome to the Business Office Open Office Training. This week's session is on using conference rooms in MLFTC. I'll go ahead and try to move that. If I do that, then I can't see them. So I'll just move it out there. Okay. Some of the things that we're going to discuss today is kind of identifying the best room that fits your needs, what it is that you're wanting to do, trying to do. We'll talk a little bit about the available technologies in those rooms, what's there, a little bit about how to use them, and then some troubleshooting common issues to get your meeting back on track. So there are things that happen as we've experienced this morning. Sometimes that means in the room you're in, if you can't get the audio to work, you can go to a phone. So if somebody, and most of the rooms have a phone in the room that you could utilize for that. Unfortunately, the Dean's office suite is where the one that we're using today, and it actually doesn't have another phone in there that we can utilize for that. It's all patched in to the piece that broke. And so we still have work that we need to do in that office to get that to work. Somebody was able to successfully use it yesterday, so we thought smooth sailing will be just fine, but unfortunately that didn't work out. So without further ado, let's jump right in and start talking about the different rooms that we have. We'll start over at Farmer, and Farmer 425. This room, it's one of our smallest conference rooms that has a television, it has a computer, and has all the devices to be able to have video conferencing. It seats about 5 people around the table. There are 2 extra chairs in there, a little bit less comfy, but seating surfaces nonetheless. You could have more people in there if you wanted to have them stand or sit on the floor, but it's always nice to have a chair to sit in. So there is a boardroom conference table. There's a network connected computer. It sits on the back of the TV where most of them sit, and we'll take a look at that. I was hoping I was going to be able to hook up a camera to be able to show it on the screen so you could see it and everybody else could see it, but unfortunately that didn't work out. But I'll kind of show you where it is and describe to others where they can find it. But a network connected computer. There's a 55-inch TV monitor in this room. There's a whiteboard on the opposite wall of the television. There is a conference phone. The number is listed there. There's a Logitech webcam for video conferencing, which is just like the one that we have sitting in front of us. It's a little bit different than the one you have that you're looking at out in Tempe, or if there's anybody out at Poly, yours is a little different as well. And then the Quattro speaker and microphone, which is sitting right here in the middle. There's one of those at that location in 425 as well. So hopefully you can see what I was pointing to out there in Tempe. And I'll show you a close-up of what it looks like a little bit later. So that's 425. This is 312, very similar setup, a little bit larger room. It will seat 9 people around the table, 4 extra chairs, boardroom conference table, network connected computer, 55-inch TV monitor, whiteboard, conference room, phone number is there, Logitech webcam, and Quattro speaker and microphone. So as we go through this, you'll notice a lot of similarities in the setup. So this is the back of the room. This is the front of the room. Whiteboard is over on the side for this particular one. This is Farmer Ed 308. It's a little bit larger room. It can seat around 10 people at the table. There are 8 extra chairs in that room. You can actually seat quite a few more in there if needed. There is a boardroom conference table that is quite large, and there's network connected computer, 55-inch monitor, all the same amenities as the other ones had. This particular whiteboard, though, rolls around so you can move it in and out into different places. It's a little bit cumbersome to do that. So if you do move it, do make sure that gets put back in place for any of those. So this is Farmer Ed on the bottom floor, 146. It's next to the Ignited Lab. It seats 9 people around the table. I think you could probably comfortably squeeze a few more than that. There are 18 extra chairs in there, so you have a balcony. Everybody can be around, and some of the larger meetings that you might have could be in this space. It has a large conference table, boardroom conference table. The TV that is in there is also 55-inch. It's got a network connected computer, just like the rest of these. So it supports Zoom, just like the others will do as well. It has a conference phone, and then has a Logitech webcam and the Quattro for speaker and microphone. We're going to move over up to the north, and that is Payne. We've recently kind of taken over some of those conference room spaces that are available in Payne. This one is 129. You guys, have you been in meetings in this one? Or this is a larger room. It has kind of workshop style tables that can be moved around and set up as you need them for your sessions. In the back of the room, there's kind of a shelf step up that there are 3 round tables, and then back behind there is a cabinet with a countertop on it. A lot of times food is set up back there, and so this is a nice kind of small venue that's not really necessarily a conference room. It's more of a kind of a larger meeting space, but a smaller conference type of environment. Yes.
For a room like this, do you move the tables yourself, or do you request that to be done ahead of time?
You could probably put in a request to have it moved, and that would likely go to, would start with the dean's office, and they would direct you on where we would need to go with that request for sure. And then there are student workers that may be able to go over and set that room up and help out with that.
Just a side note on that current room right now, it's being used as a classroom for the study project. So it's really offline as a conference room, but
eventually it'll be back. So some of the amenities that make this unique is obviously the seating areas, but also there's an 85-inch TV. It has HDMI and wireless. It's HDMI display. There is a sound system in there that is Bluetooth capable, so you can play music with your device as long as it has Bluetooth capabilities. There is a wireless handheld microphone and lavalier in that room that you can utilize as well. And so you can fill that room with sound pretty easily. There's also a portable whiteboard. You can kind of see it off to the right side over there. Kind of right up here, that's the whiteboard. Just across the hall, so both of these rooms are on the west side of Payne. And this would be just across the hall from 129. It's 132. It seats 10 people around the table. Every time I go over there, this one is physically locked, and you'll need a key to get into that. So make those arrangements. Again, that will likely be with the dean's office. Lori can help you out, and the worker will come over and assist in providing access to that room. There is a network connected computer again behind the television, and there are whiteboards kind of located around the room. I think there's one kind of in the back corner that will roll around as well. There's a Logitech webcam and Quattro speakers. Moving over to the east side of Payne, these are kind of in that middle section as you walk in that front door on the first floor. In 103, which is Oh, good. You found that's a good way to do it. Thank you. So in this one, 103, it seats 10 people. There's a boardroom conference table. There's a network connected computer. There's a conference phone and a portable whiteboard. 107, a little bit larger room. It'll seat 14 people around the table. There's a boardroom conference table there. Network connected computer. You can read all of that pretty well. There is a portable whiteboard in the room. And then the Logitech webcam for video conferencing does both audio and video for that room. It doesn't have the Quattro set up. So this one is also in Payne Hall. This is a seminar room. It is EDB 101. It is to the left as you walk in that bottom door from the breezeway. It is, I think they use this one for classes as well. It is probably not one that you can check out, but wanted to go ahead and include it in here. It has a television that is on the wall. I don't know if it's still there or not. I haven't been over there and checked it recently, but there has been a television on a cart with a meetup camera that has been put into that room, and that is that's the one that is used for that room. So if you go in there and you're trying to get the one that's on the wall to work, probably not the best option. Look for the 65-inch TV on the cart, and it'll do what you need it to do. And it's got the Logitech Meetup webcam. We'll look at what that looks like here in a minute. But it has the webcam, it has the speaker, and it has the microphone all contained in one device. Coming over here to West, where we have the majority of people joining the session today. Buffalo is 211. It's downstairs on the second floor. It seats 11 around the table, plus it has 3 extra chairs. We have had the carpet replaced in that room, so we don't have the ugly tape any longer. It has the boardroom conference table, it has network connected computer, 55-inch TV monitor, whiteboard, Logitech and Quattro. And then we have Anasazi, which is 210. It seats 18 people. It has 8 workshop style tables or type tables. I've seen this room set in many different configurations, but usually I think they try to leave it in this type of configuration to support video conferencing if something needs to happen. Most of the stuff is set up on the credenza in that room, so you have to go grab that and pull it to the table, like keyboard, mouse, and those devices. But I think you should be you may be able to pull the Quattro over to the table, and so that would support a little bit better audio in the room. And then the Avaya phone that is in there, the same thing goes for that as well. One that many may not know is there is Fab N280, which is just off of the stairwell on the north side of the second floor, in kind of, I'll say on the back side of the building. So it's kind of tucked away in a corner. So it seats 8 around the table plus 3 extra chairs. It has the boardroom conference table, network connected computer, a 65-inch TV and monitor on a cart. There's a whiteboard to the side. It's actually in the back of the room. And then it also has the Logitech Meetup webcam, speaker microphone for video conferencing. The devices you'll find are on the table for the most part. There is a credenza over here. Bless you. There's an old TV with a VCR and DVD. You probably don't want to use that. But I just mentioned it because it's there. Fab 302, it is the smaller of the 2 conference rooms on the 3rd floor at the West Campus in Fab. It has 10 seats around the table. There's one extra chair in the room, so you can probably kind of squeeze together in there and get everybody at the table. Again, it's got the conference table. It's got a 55-inch monitor. Excuse me. It's got a whiteboard and the Logitech webcam and Quattro. A nice little amenity on this one is that it has turtle legs, a turtle head, and a turtle tail that somebody has taped on there. We ask you not to do that to all the Quattros, but we leave that just for fun. So 318, the room that we're actually in now, you can kind of see the devices that are in here. You see the TV in front of us, 55, but it looks a little bit bigger to me. Whiteboard to the back of us, plus it has a portable whiteboard and some chart paper for your use. There's a webcam, there's a Logitech webcam, and we have the Quattro, which is here in the room. So Senka is our one poly conference room. I don't have a picture of the actual TV and setup, but one of the things that I'll show you in a little bit that we'll be able to see is there's to that little kind of pigtail wire that's running on the table, there's a little speaker that connects to the Logitech Meetup webcam, and that speaker allows you to set that on the conference table so it picks up all the conversation that is happening. So with that, we're going to jump into talking about the devices that we find in the rooms. Before we do that, are there any questions about what we talked about in all the different conference rooms that we went over? Yes.
For this room, 318 at West, it used to be considered the Dean's conference room, and you had to have permission to use it. Is that changing?
I believe it is. I've not heard that you have to have special permission to use it. So I would continue to operate as you've operated in the past until you hear differently. But I've been able to schedule it, but I may have privileges that others don't. So I do know that marketing uses it from time to time, and others use it from time to time. I don't know if they're getting special permission to use it. So if you've been using a process, continue to use that same process. Okay? Was that for clear as mud?
I have been checking
okay.
For marketing and all, everybody wants. Yes.
Okay.
So I check with the dean, Jan, or the dean's assistant. Okay. And make sure that the dean won't be here that day.
Perfect. All right.
So I'll continue to do that.
Continue to do that.
Just so everybody else knows that if that's the way it is.
Yeah. And I also didn't put in the conference rooms listings that I went over the Dean Suite, which is 402, and for that same sort of reason, because they kind of control that room and use that room. So if you really need to use that room, check in with Lori at the front desk. She can assist you if need be. So, Laxis, do you have any questions out there from Tempe?
So I'm sorry, hold on a second. I had to get my headphones. My only question is I missed a few slides earlier on. Did you say that you were going to send out the slides in the recording later?
They will be available later. We're working on where that's going to be placed, but yes, it'll be made available later.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, so any other questions before we move on? All right, great. Let's dive into the technologies that are available. So these are the telephones, the conference room telephones that you're going to see, there are different ones in different places, and they being the technical team that works with the telephones, they will change those out periodically. We're not always informed of that. We've tried to stay on top of it, but right now, the rooms that we have available, these are the types of phones that will be in there. The one on the left side is the, I don't have the numbers, but I don't think that really matters to you. There's a link to download information on that phone if you need to know how to use it. But we all pretty much know how to use phones. And so they've been around for a long time. One of the things with the one on the left, it has a screen rather than having physical buttons. So you'll need to just tap that screen and it will awaken, and you'll be able to find the dial pad and those types of things so you can get through and get moving. The one in the middle is another Avaya phone, conference phone. It's an earlier model. It actually has the physical keys on it. So, and you can see some of the things that you can do. You can call, you can hang up, you can raise the volume or lower the volume. You can mute the phone. If you do mute the phone, there are lights on the side that will light up and let you know that the phone is muted so that you're not talking just to yourselves in the room, or you know you're talking just to yourselves in the room. So that gives you a clear and concise confirmation of that. And then all the rest of the buttons are fairly self-explanatory, and you can call out from this. Basically, it's a telephone that has speakers that everybody can hear. So just use it as that. I think you'll be in good shape. The Cisco conference phone, very much, well, I'll say it's not altogether dissimilar from the other two. Just has a kind of a different layout, different platform on what it looks like. The little rocker pad that you see there allows you to move through different menus to get to what you need. That is done on the Avaya phones by hitting the settings button, the universal cog icon that's used for settings. So you'll be able to, if you need to do anything with the settings, that's what you would hit. But we'd ask you not to play around with those too much, because those settings are what allows it to connect to the network. And so there may be some things in there that if you were to change them would keep the phone from working. So usually they have those blocks, so it shouldn't be a problem. So but these links that are on here, anytime there's a space between them, there's an underline, by the way. Those will be, I'll make this available later on, so you'll be able to click on those and go out to books on what do you call those books? The manuals, the model manual. So thank you for that word. It was escaping me. All right, so that's kind of the telephone side. These are the devices that we use for the cameras as well as the audio. So the video and audio both come through this. So when you're selecting from your devices in Zoom, you're looking for these different devices that are in the room. So that's why it's important to kind of know the names of them. The Logitech conference cam, it has both the camera for the video. It also has speakers in it. So if you wanted to use the speakers of that, you could. So that's an option, but it sits out there further away, so it doesn't pick voices up that are at this end of the table. So that's why we have the Quattro. And the Quattro is just a speaker and microphone. And it allows, so in Zoom, you would go in for the speaker and microphone, you would select Quattro. So I'll show you, and unfortunately, you're not going to be able to see this out in Tempe, sorry. But if I hover over either the down arrow if it's up top, or the up arrow if it's down at the bottom, if I hover over that, I see the microphone that is selected. It's the PHNX, which is Phoenix Quattro 3. That is this device. That's what we have selected for our microphone. And also we have that selected for our speaker. If those two are not working, there may be an option to use the Logitech as well, so you can select that. And then this guy down here, this is on all of the portable carts that we have. This is in the Dean's conference room. It is the meetup camera. It has a speaker, a microphone, and the camera built in. So it does a really nice job of filling the room with sound and picking up all the sound and canceling out the echo. So all of these devices have special tools within them that help to minimize echo and keep that out of the room. One of the issues that we do have from time to time is somebody will have a laptop in a room, they'll have it on, and I'm glad you have your headphones on out in Tempe, because if you didn't, if you just had your speaker on with what was in the room, we may, and your microphone on, we may end up with some echo in the room. If everybody else is hearing echo, but you're not, the issue is likely you. So make sure you mute some things, mute your microphone first, or mute your speakers, and then start turning things back on until you find the echo, and then turn that thing off and see if you can get around it another way. So these are the different remotes that go with a couple of those devices. The one on the left goes with the camera that we're shooting with, which is the Logitech conference camera. And then the one on the right goes with the meetup, which is that long skinny one with the camera in the middle, which is the one that is out in the Dean's suite. That little, so these will allow you to zoom in or zoom out. If I had that little device and it hadn't walked out of here, I would be able to show you what that would do. But basically, it will also allow you to adjust up and down. So sorry, I'm going to do this to you, but I just need to kind of show you. So if I can zoom out, right? Can you see us up here in this little thing? I'm going to zoom down this side, sorry. Maybe all the way zoomed out. I'm zooming in now. I can zoom out. Okay. So if you are ever in the room and it's kind of you're not able to see people in the front, you're only able to see people in the back. It may be that it's pointed up too high. When I came in here, it was pointed way up. And so there are buttons that allow you to adjust the angle of the camera so you can get everybody in or out of the picture. So, and that is simply by adjusting those toggle switches. So there's one that goes up, there's one that goes down, there's one that goes left, one that goes right. So I think that you can pretty well figure that out. There's also volume buttons on there. So for the most part, you're not going to mess with that because you're not using that as your speaker, okay, or your microphone. But the Quattro is where all of that information comes up, and those are directly on the device itself. Likewise, the same kinds of things happen over here. This is just kind of the normal or the new version of what that looks like, and it's just kind of a round pad on the outside of it that you can rock her back and forth and pan and tilt up and down. The middle one is a home button, and that'll take it back to the default setting, okay? So there are two buttons on that particular device, that one and then this one on the outer circle. Well, that's a lot of wild images up there. And I'm going to move this a little more out of the way so we can see. So when you come into a conference room, there are several things that you need to do to kind of get it ready to move forward. First thing starts with this, and that is the device to power on the television. The computer is on, and it stays on. It does a restart at night to kind of wipe everything and put it back into, yes?
My team has gone into the conference rooms, and I'm guessing when people use the shutdown,
Yes.
Instead of sign off, it actually shuts off that computer in
Yep.
the back of the TV.
Yeah.
Um,
We're going to be talking about
Okay.
that in just a little bit, but yes. It's important not to turn the computer off when you leave. You can do a log off, or if you want to do a restart so it wipes all of your stuff off, that's okay, but make sure it comes back up before you leave the room, because if it doesn't come back up, you need to let somebody know, and so that we can get in there and figure out why didn't it come back up, and we do a restart again. But these are some of the different things that are up there, that are in the room, excuse me, up there. So there's a keyboard, and you're going to find many different types of keyboards in the room, but I'll let you know that the on and off is right here in the top for these that are the solar charged ones, and you need to slip that on to on from off. And then also the mouse, you need to check and make sure that is also on. Some of the other keyboards have the power on the upper edge, kind of on the back of the keyboard. So just be aware of that. An indication that the TV is on is that little arrow. You can see it on our TV. I don't think you can see it out there in Tempe, but you see it kind of boxed there. That indicates the TV power is on. So if you have a blank screen, we'll talk about what to do about that. On the remote control, whatever remote control you have, there are a couple of buttons you need to know about. That's the power and the input. The input you'll need to use to make sure you're on the proper device for the input into the TV. So if you're using any of the equipment on the table, if you're plugging into a laptop, you'll need to change the input. If you're using the onboard computer that is behind the TV, you're going to change to the desktop option so that computer will display. So if the remote somehow goes missing, the last people threw that into their bag as they were collecting everything, and they walked off with it. We'll go looking for it. Please let us know it's missing. But over on the left-hand side of the television, on the edge, there are power buttons and input buttons over there. So you're not completely lost if you don't have the remote. Okay. Also, if you look on the top right, there's a power button for the computer. The computer sits right back here. This is what I was hoping to use the camera for, but it didn't work. But it sits right back here, and there's a little box that looks just like this. That inside of that, kind of up on the top of it, is there are little lights if that computer is on. They'll be green, and they'll be showing. You'll be able to see if it's turned on. If those are not on, there's a little red round button right on the upper edge of that. You just push that, and it'll cycle the computer on. So before we go, I'll have everybody take a look at that. And out in Tempe, I don't think we have the option to be able to show you that out there. But next time you're in one of the other conference rooms, take a look and see if you can find that, just so you're aware of it and know where it is. Also, just below that, there is a USB hub, and you can put in a USB drive into that if you have a presentation. That is connected to the computer, and so it will read that just like it does on your desktop computer or your laptop or whatever you're using in your office. So just a few more shots of some of the different devices you might encounter. This is that keyboard that has the power button up on the upper edge. This mouse has the power button on the underside, but it's in a different location. You see the meetup remote there. This is one of the Samsung remotes. This home button is what you use to get to the menu to allow you to get to the input. So you'll have to use your arrow keys or your other keys that are on that to get to the input to be able to select that. So you'll just use that rocker button to get to where you need to go. On the table itself, there are some, so if you don't want to use the onboard computer, you want to use your laptop, there are cables and there are also adapters that will fit pretty much any of the computers that we have available that we provide to our staff and faculty. And we're hoping that it will fit the needs of most of the people that show up if you have a guest that comes in as well. All of the adapters connect to the HDMI cable. We need to make sure that that gets plugged in. And you see up here in the box, that's what is highlighted. We also have the VGA cable that you can utilize as well. That goes into the PC as well. So that actually goes into, it's your own device, but it goes into the display.
Yes, but I'm not going to guarantee that those are all going to work.
Yeah, okay. All right, so be safe, use HDMI. And there's a VGA option for connecting the HDMI to VGA if that's necessary.
And that's primarily because we've provided those dongle rings,
Yeah.
Those adapter rings in every single room to make it more streamlined for everyone.
All right. So let's talk a little bit. Are there any questions? Are there any other devices that you see in the rooms that that I didn't cover or talk about, or you'd like to know a little bit about? Yes.
With the camera, some of the meetings I've been in, the image of the room I'm in is blurry to the other people. So they're like, well, focus in on your side. I'm like, is it really a problem with how the camera is focusing in the room I'm in? Or like, how do you make the picture clearer?
Yeah.
And is that something that's on the remotes, or is that somewhere else to make the picture less fuzzy?
Yeah, there are a couple of things. One, we need to know about those if you're having that issue. Two, one of the things you might want to do is if it's one of the meetup cameras, you might want to choose to zoom in a little bit more into where you're sitting. That may help because the further out it is, different lighting and different things kind of obscure the image a bit. So that's one of the things that can be done. So biggest, most important thing is letting us know where those issues exist, and we'll try to see if we can get that resolved. Is that in 280? Is that where it was, or other places?
Yes, that's one of them, but
Okay.
it's not consistently
Okay.
blurry, so it's.
Well, the other thing is how the network is behaving on that day. So anytime you're using Zoom or another video conferencing tool, it will reduce the size of what it's sending, the number of packets it's sending, how it's sending that out to what the network can handle and what will produce the best, clearest image on the other side. So there is the possibility that it's network related. It has nothing to do with the equipment. And that's
Been in the meetings and like Farmer 146,
Yep.
that's what's appearing blurry.
okay.
And so it's like, we're told, it's like, well, then fix it on your end, and it's like, it's all over your
Yeah.
end. So it's trying to figure out when you get
Yeah.
a request to clarify the video feed, it's like, well,
Yeah.
how would I do that?
And I think most of the options, I don't think there's really much of an option to focus. Most of those are autofocus. There may be something like in the front of the table that it's picking up. You might want to move that around. That's why I said try zooming in. Kelly,
I'm wondering if we need to go around and maybe clean the lenses on
Yeah.
that particular model, because that is the primary model that we have in most rooms. So as work has been done, or as people have passed by, if they've touched that lens, that's going to put fingerprints and everything else on it. So that's something that we can look at. I'm not going to guarantee that that's going to help, but that is something that we can look at doing as well.
it could be, it just dust gets on those as well. So that's the other thing.
And some of those are getting aged as
Yeah.
well. I mean, those cameras have been in place, those conference rooms, like 146 specifically. Most of the ones here in Fab and Farmer were done all at the same time, and those are going to date back to 2014, early 2015-ish. So some of the equipment is getting aged in there as well. So, but we might also be able to look at maybe doing some firmware updates or something on those cameras as well. So,
Does lighting have anything to do with it?
The lighting does impact it. So if the room isn't lit, that can have an impact. If the lights are shining on an object that is near the camera and it's reflecting toward the camera, that will have an impact. So moving some of those objects in the room around and asking people to do that on the other side, if you're seeing something that looks like maybe it's causing a glare, it's wise to kind of test those things. And it's good to kind of test the room out, figure out what's in the room that might be causing the issue before you start monkeying around with any settings or anything else. Because once you start monkeying around with settings, it's hard to get those back. But if you do something in the room that changes it, you solve the issue without changing any of the settings. So that's good to keep in mind.
natural light can also play into that. And you know, Farmer 146, the camera is actually pointed to the windows that are in that room. So we may need to do some testing in there to see blinds up, blinds down.
Same with
like
280,
that.
natural light.
That
Yeah.
280 has that
And those
natural
have
light.
big windows in there, so the natural light can play a big piece on that.
So panning away from that light, like in 280, if you have people sit on the kind of the east side of that table and then pan the camera around to pick you up on that side, may reduce some of that. So there are some things to play with and see if it will work. And I'm not promising it's always going to resolve the issue, but those are some things to try. So, so I've got a problem. I walked into the conference room. I'm sorry, I'm going on to the next piece. I walked into to a conference room, and the display in the TV is blank or it's black. After you know, I grabbed the mouse, I grabbed the keyboard, and I turned. Well, first step, I'm going to make sure that I've powered it on. Next step would be, if that doesn't do it, you might want to check and see, and these may be out of order, you might want to check and see if the input is correct. Go around and check for those green lights to see if you can find the green lights on the side. If those green lights are not there, reaching up and pushing the power button on the computer will launch it up into its startup process and turn the computer on. So I've got a couple of little arrows that you see before we leave here today. If you've not seen where those are, I want you to take a look at that. I'll stick around and we can talk a little bit about that and show you what's there. But if you see the green lights, just continue on to the next step. And really that is making sure that the proper input is selected on the television. And for the most part, that is going to be desktop is what you want to select. If you're plugging into the table, you're going to want to select, oh, I don't want to do this. Table HDMI is what you're going to want to go with. So we'll go with that for now. But check the inputs and roll through those until you have a successful connection. The keyboard and mouse aren't working. We've talked about this a number of different times. You need to check and make sure the power is on those. After you've powered them on, if they're still not working, it may be, it may be that it needs batteries. So you might check with somebody real quick to see if you can get the batteries. The other thing, and hopefully somebody hasn't done it, is the little Bluetooth adapters for these might be unplugged, slightly unplugged, or taken out completely. And this room, you can see them actually plugged in to the device, to the USB ports on the right. If the mouse happens to be jumpy or it's hard to move, you can try putting a piece of paper or a kind of a either more or less reflective, consistent colored something under it, a piece of paper or back of a notebook or something like that that is not highly reflective. And that will help out. Lots of arrows and fun things on this one. So if your sound is not working, there are a few things you can do to check that out. If you're on Zoom, which mostly that's when you're going to recognize it, there are a few things to check. We need to check and see if the Zoom microphone is on mute. In this particular instance, you see the red line through it. That means it's muted. So you would go in and select that, either the up arrow or the down arrow, depending upon where your bar is. And then you need to select Quattro for your microphone and Quattro for the speaker if you're in a room that has the Quattro. And if you're in the one of the rooms that has the meetup, you'll need to select Logitech Meetup as your option. And that should resolve the issue. If it doesn't, so there are a couple of different options there. If that doesn't resolve the issue, we're going to look at our from the little Quattro here. It has buttons on it. If the button happens to be flashing, that means it's on mute. So you just need to push it to see to unmute it. If it is dark and there are no blue lights on it, you can push that middle button, the speaker button, and hold it for about 3 seconds, and it should come on. If it doesn't come on, then gently turn it over and make sure the USB cable is connected to it. And then if everything looks good there, you might want to let us know or let somebody know. It may be a connection to the computer in the back. It is kind of hard to get to and difficult to adjust. So, but it's likely that that has become undone if you don't get any blue lights on there, or the device is just kaput. So we'll make that determination, see if we can get it resolved if you let us know. If all else fails, and one that Kelly mentioned to me this morning when we were trying to troubleshoot the Dean's suite is, did somebody try turning off the computer and turning it back on again? That is, go through the shutdown process or just do a restart on the machine and bring it back up and see if that makes a difference. Obviously, if you come in 2 minutes before your meeting starts, it makes this kind of a frantic time, and you get your likelihood of getting really anxious and upset are much higher. So, so if you are able to get in there a little bit early just to kind of make sure everything's running and troubleshoot all of the different things that might be going wrong, that would be tremendously helpful to keep your blood pressure down and make it a happier day. Let's see. The other thing you can do is, none of that is working, but you've got Zoom up and you can hear, you can't hear you, they can't hear you, either one. The other option is to use a telephone. Excuse me. The other option is to use a telephone to call the Zoom line and use that as your audio. So I think that's an option that we often forget about. Out in Tempe today, she was wise enough just to pull out her laptop. She's the only one that made it to the meeting. So she just joined the Zoom call. Somebody provided the number to her. She joined and she was able to do that. You could do that in a meeting if you had to and use that as your audio if you needed to do that and connect that way. So there are many different options that we could utilize as far as, so being at ASU, we're very innovative. We can come up with those kinds of troubleshooting options in the moment and innovate and make it work. So you guys are very smart, can make that happen.
Can you
Yes.
call Zoom again? Is there a number?
So there's a number. If the person who set up the meeting selected both, what is it, video conference and phone, it will give a phone number for that meeting. So you'll be able to call into that meeting. And it may require you to do a quick to share out another Zoom meeting if it didn't have a phone number in it. But you can, that's something you can do kind of on the fly as a troubleshooting option. So any questions on troubleshooting, any other thoughts or options or anything else you think we ought to talk about for trouble that comes up in a meeting? Go ahead, Kevin.
Who supplies batteries for the mouse and the keyboard? Like, where do we get those if we need to replace batteries?
You can check in with us if we're not available. Usually the person at the front desk will have something available and can replace them in the moment and get that taken care of for you. So downstairs here at West, it would be Leslie. Upstairs, I presume it would be you. I saw you shaking your head in the affirmative that you do have batteries and can replace those. So thank you very much. Appreciate that. And then out in Tempe, that would be either a call to the dean's office or sending somebody down there to check with Lori. One of the student workers should be able to come and take care of that for you. So good question. Other questions before we move on to this next piece? All right. So how do we leave the room when we came in? Well, if it was in perfect and wonderful shape when you walked in, leave it the same way. If it wasn't in perfect shape when you walked in, don't leave it the same way. Fix it to how it would be nice for somebody to walk into if they're starting a meeting. I always like to say, be considerate of those who are coming after you, and leave it in a way that you would want to find it if you were coming in to start a meeting. So typically, what we try to do is have the keyboard and mouse set right next to one another with the remote either across the top of that, beside it, somewhere in that general vicinity. All of those tools that you would need to use and function with for the session, you'll want to have those there. If you have done anything strange or different with the different devices on the table, make sure that they are set up in kind of this current array, which is kind of cables in the middle, Quattro. We shouldn't be moving that around because if you do, it's going to get unplugged. But if it does get unplugged, let us know or go ahead and try plugging that back in. If you had to move the phone for some reason or another, please don't. But if it did happen, try to get that put back into place so it's not an issue for the next person that comes up. As was mentioned earlier in the session, do not shut the computer down and leave it shut down. If you want to restart the computer so it wipes all of your stuff out that you had put on there, that is fine, but stay in the room until it comes back up so that it doesn't stall in the process of restarting and hangs up and it's in bad shape for the next person that comes in. So do make sure that it comes back up. The other option is just to log off if you didn't really store anything. It is not going to, you're going to make sure that you log out of Zoom, you log out of any of those kinds of things that you've been using while you were in there. Also make sure you log off of the computer when you finish up. I said in there, restart the computer if necessary, if you want to make sure everything is wiped off. Also, if you've used a USB of any sort, you've had that plugged in so that you can do your presentation off of that, you'll want to make sure that you kick that off appropriately, clicking on that little arrow down below. and then clicking to eject it, making sure that it's removed properly. And then any remotes, keyboards, mice, cables, and those kinds of things, make sure that they're set up in the proper locations. And then tables, chairs, lights, doors, etc. Make sure those are all kind of put back into place and as tidy as possible. Okay. And
I'm assuming you would turn off like the keyboard and the mouse.
yeah,
or-
it's not going to consume a lot of energy. It does cause people some issues when they come in the room and they're not on. And not
Yes,
everybody
keep
has
it
come
on.
to that. You can keep it on unless you know the people that are coming in to the next meeting. You can turn it off and say, hey, I turned the mouse off and the keyboard off. But I think more and more people are becoming aware to check that. But go ahead and leave them on. I think it'll be fine. Do you have questions? Are there any issues that you've run into that you want to kind of talk through? All right. Well, thank you all very much. Really appreciate you coming out, and hopefully it was helpful.
What?
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
Absolutely. If you have questions, let me know.